Sahrawi, and in this video we are going to be looking at how to dance to the ney. So I just did a video about how to dance to the oud, and I'm continuing with this series of talking about how to dance to different Middle Eastern instruments, which I am calling Taqsim tips, with this video. So the oud, as I said in that previous video, is one of the most important instruments in Middle Eastern music, and the ney is also extremely important, so that's why I wanted to talk about it today. Bellydance Breakdown. So let's look a bit at the ney, at what it is and its characteristics, and then we'll talk about the different ways that we can dance to it. So the ney is a reed instrument, so like a flute, sort of a Middle Eastern version of a flute. So a reed with different holes in it, you blow through it, and depending on where you put your fingers, you will get different notes. So it has a very airy sound to it, breathy, airy, almost mystical, I think the sound is, for me at least. So like when I hear a ney, that's kind of like at the image in my head of the desert at night, with a kind of mystical, magical feeling to it. At least that's what the ney inspires in me. And in terms of the range of the ney, a ney has a range of about an octave, but a skilled player could play much more than an octave on a single ney, but anyways, usually players have lots of different neys. So the lowest ney, usually the lowest note on that ney would be the middle C, that's C4, that we looked at as well with the oud. It was actually the highest string of the oud. With the neys, that's going to be the lowest note, and then it just goes up from there. So with the neys, you can get quite high, so they go very, very high, but we also have a bit some in that mid-range as well. So the other things to think about in terms of the sound, because it's an instrument that we blow on, we can have very long, drawn-out notes on the ney, but we do also have some trills, so like playing a few notes back and forth very fast as well. We don't have any, though, sort of percussive, really sounds the way we have with the oud. So now that we've looked a bit at the characteristics of the instrument, let's talk about the sorts of movements we can do to a ney. And disclaimer, as always, these are not rules. I'm not saying when you hear a ney, you need to dance this way. These are just guidelines, and they are meant to help you in your improvisation or in creating choreographies so that it's a bit easier to know exactly what to do and to bring a bit of order to the chaos. So, because the ney is a higher pitched instrument, I like to do movements that are a bit higher in the body. So I do a lot of focus on arms and wrists. So doing some really pretty wrist movements. This also goes with that kind of mystical, airy feeling. So you can be very free in coming up with arm movements, but I like to do a lot of, somewhat dramatic, I would say, more elegant or magical kind of arm movements. So that's a really big one. And another thing that goes well with the ney is kind of vertical movements. I mean, the ney also has this vertical form to it, right? It's just like a reed. So things like camels work really well, or also, of course, the reverse camels, rolling up. As always, I will link the descriptions to videos describing these different techniques below, but I'm not going to go into that in a lot of detail. But camels and reverse camels. I'm not going to be as focused on my hips as I am with the oud, But when I do hip movements with the nay, usually I like to do movements that bring in some of that vertical quality. So say your vertical eights, usually vertical eights going up just because of that feeling of up, but of course there are also the mayas going down, or a single hip circle, again, because you're bringing that hip up, so we have that vertical quality in the hips. And I even like to carry it up often with a reverse camel, maybe a bit in the chest, up into the arms, so we can really play with coming up and down with that nay. I'm not going to do as many horizontal movements like the eights and things like that. For me, it just doesn't work as well with the nay, but those vertical hip movements, they can combine really nicely. Even something like an ummi can again go into a reverse camel. And we want to think about really long and held movements a lot of the time when the nay is doing that. That's another reason that I like to use the arms, because we can be very slow and mystical and all of that. Using our arms, using our wrists, we can kind of direct attention to one place and then bring it to another place. I might even do a little bit of turning, depending on how kind of dramatic the music is. So the movements, again, are going to be a little bit bigger and just a lot of that up and down feeling. That's what I like to do to a nay. So with that in mind, let's turn on a little nay Taqsim and just try improvising using those ideas. So lots of arms, wrists, camels, maybe a few vertical hip movements like eights or single hip circles, something like that. And just play around. You can also do maybe a little bit of shoulder movements, but in general, I keep it more in the wrists and the arms. A little bit of elbows and shoulders also can be a lot of fun. So, let's turn on some music and play around. Of course, you can follow what I'm doing, or you can experiment on your own, try out different things. That's always very fun and very helpful. To the nay. Again, this is part of a new Taqsim tips series that I'm doing where I talk about how to dance to different instruments. So if you have other instruments you would like to see, you can let me know in the comments below. I'm going to try to do most of what I think are the most common instruments in Middle Eastern music. And if you did like this video and find it helpful, please give it a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Thank you so much for watching and happy practicing.